Chegamos à famosa Glacier de Mendenhall. Eu acho que no inverno ela deve ser mais bonita, porque agora a neve já está meio cinza. Lá de cima deve ter uma visão melhor. A tomada da Glacier. E eu achei, olha lá, ó, o iceberg que afundou o Titanic. Uma visão do alto agora, a cascata. Vamos trazê-lo um pouquinho mais próximo da gente. Depois o lago. E a Glacier. No inverno deve ser muito bonito. Continuando agora. A gente pode ver vários icebergs. Uma linda. Passeio aéreo.
Alaska has been called the Great Land, full of rock and ice and landforms that seem unmoving and unchanging. But these sturdy mountains and solid fields of ice are anything but static. For millions of years, this place that seems so sure and steady has been in a continuous state of becoming what we see today. Over vast stretches of time, glaciers advanced and retreated. Towering trees filled the open spaces, creating the world's largest temperate rainforest, the Tongass National Forest. Southeast Alaska's frigid mountaintops and snowy ridges form the eastern boundary of the Tongass National Forest, the slender strip of land and water that stretches 500 miles along the Pacific coast. The tall peaks trap moist Pacific air, assuring the steady supply of rain and snow that sculpts this land. At high elevations, the process begins with snow as much as 100 feet in some areas. The Juneau ice field, which blankets over 1,500 square miles of southeast Alaska and Canada, is a remnant of the ice sheets that once covered much of North America. This ice field alone feeds 38 glaciers, Southeast Alaska's rivers of ice. This place is a perfect laboratory for scientists studying glaciers. Changes in the glaciers reveal insights about the health of our planet and how it's being affected by climate change.
Right here, we're up at the top of the Mendenhall Glacier on the Juneau ice field, and there's so much snow falling each year. In the winter, we can get over 100 feet of snow. And all of that snow that falls during the winter, not all of it melts during the summer, and it gets buried by the next winter's snowfall. The snow that falls here takes about 200 years to become compacted into ice and travel the length of the glacier and then discharge into the lake. Those icebergs, the Mendenhall Lake, started as snowflakes up here on the top of the ice field. So this is kind of like the birthplace of the glacier.
The end of our summer season is when we sort of balance our checkbook. When we add up how much snow we've gained up here on the top of the glacier with how much ice we've lost down by Mendenhall Lake. And then we'll sort of figure out, okay, did our gains up high compensate for our losses down low? And over the last 250 years, the Mendenhall Glacier has thinned and retreated drastically, and that trend is still continuing today.
we typically see about 15 to 20 feet a year of ice thinning. So in other words, where I'm standing, if I came back at the end of the summer, at the end of the melt season, I would be 15 or 20 feet lower down. All of this rock that's exposed is area that was covered by glacier ice, and if you look up on the hillside above the glacier, you'll actually see differences in the color of vegetation from the dark green forest to the more recent light green forest to down below that very little vegetation. And so you'll see those lines which essentially mark out places where the glacier ice has been in the recent past, and it's thinned away.
Retreating glaciers carve the land, revealing scour marks in their paths. Free of the glacier's weight, bare land lifts. New life forms on the exposed surfaces. Lichen and moss colonize on rock and glacial debris, giving flowering plants a place to take hold. Their roots bring nutrients to developing soil. Trees claim the land, creating the dense canopy and shady understory found in temperate rainforests. The transformation from bare rock to dense forest can occur in as little as 350 years, leaving a landscape once dominated by ice, covered with plant and animal species. About 13,000 years ago, the Earth began to warm. As the glaciers melted, they left deep valleys that filled with ocean water and icy glacial melt. Over the millennia, climate fluctuations have triggered smaller rounds of glacial movement. The last began 3,000 years ago. That period, known as the Little Ice Age, ended in the mid-1700s, right about the time the Mendenhall began its current retreat. In the past 2 centuries, this majestic glacier, which is 2,000 feet deep in some places, has retreated about 2.5 miles. As climate change warms our planet, further retreat is inevitable. Most glaciers in Alaska are retreating, and like the Mendenhall, they are doing so at an unprecedented speed. Conserving the nearly 17 million acres of the Tongass National Forest and its glaciers will depend upon how we maintain the health of our planet, including how we decide to face human contributions to climate change. The watery web of life in southeast Alaska extends from the upper reaches of the ice fields to the most distant rivers and streams. The Stikine River Delta is just one example of the flourishing habitats created by glaciers. 16 miles of wide delta flats lie at the mouth of this 400-mile-long river, one of the many wild rivers that flows through Canada and ends in southeast Alaska. Glacial silt forms the river delta. And as winter turns to spring, glacial melt brings the delta to life. Early spring fish runs bring forth sea lions and the largest concentration of bald eagles in North America, just as the ice begins to break and flow. The delta's muddy flats contain a bounty of shellfish, treats appreciated after a long winter's hibernation. Thousands of migrating snow geese return to the Stikine each spring. They stop to rest and feed on the delta's tender spring grasses. This feast will fuel the last leg of their journey north to their Arctic breeding grounds. Change is one of the defining qualities of the Tongass. It's apparent in the shifting shape of the landscape and in the life cycles of the creatures that thrive here. Salmon begin their journey in the Tongass, then migrate to the ocean, where they live for up to 5 years. Once fully mature, they return to the stream where they were born to lay their eggs and die. The returning salmon provide food for the forest's wildlife and a huge infusion of nutrients that benefit the health of rivers, soil, and trees. The wonder of Southeast Alaska's majestic glacial landscape has long been of interest to humans. In the 1880s, the Pacific Coast Steamship Company began tours through the Inside Passage, establishing Southeast Alaska's glaciers as popular destinations. For decades, the Mendenhall Glacier has been Southeast Alaska's most visited glacier. Tourist photographs document the glacier's beauty and its transformation over time. 100 years ago, people came to wonder at the glacier about a mile downstream from where the visitor center now stands. Before 1930, Mendenhall Lake did not even exist. The Mendenhall Glacier remains a powerful attraction for both tourists and locals, receiving thousands of visitors each year. The Mendenhall Glacier was called Oktoksit, the glacier behind the little lake, by the Tlingit, the first people of Southeast Alaska. The Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian tribes all call the Tongass home. Many of their lives remain entwined and influenced by the forest glacial landscape.
My name is Terry Rafkar. In Tlingit, my name is Jas Kuutla. I am Dukdeen Tan, which is from the Raven clan group. One of the things with the Tlingit perspective, we never had a word for art. It wasn't that we didn't have the wealth enough to have art for just art's sake. But art was part of every day. So art was that paddle that you paddle a canoe. So not only when you hold it up as you approach a village, they know who you are, but as you paddle, the animals in the ocean, the killer whales and the seals, they also are aware of who you are as you pass through their land. The wool weaving that I do, it's called Raven's Tail. The mountain goat wool is harvested from hunters. It's harvested from hikers. When they shed in the spring, we'll harvest the wool off of that. The robe that I'm working on now will have a beautiful glacier pattern across the top. It's about the Arctic Ocean and glaciers receding. It's about the DNA of mountain goats. It's today's story. If you took the word Tlingit, Tlin is tide and Get meant people. We were people of the tides. So this is the tides as they flow and they surround the breakers that are at the mouth of Lituya Bay. And the tides flow around them and then out to sea. The art reflects the place. So isn't it just perfect that as you put on your potlatch hat made out of the spruce roots from the beaches and you wrap yourself in the robes of the mountain goat, you've really embodied the very beaches and the lofty places that we call home. And I would challenge visitors to experience this place in that same way. Allow it to just become a part of who you are. Allow it to be a relationship with place that you get to share with us.
The Tongass National Forest is a landscape created by nature and woven by culture. connection that links snowflakes to glaciers, glaciers to rivers and sea, water to wildlife, trees and air, and all of these things to us embodies the essence of Southeast Alaska, where all life is interdependent and ever-changing, and where the past cannot be separated from the future.
Saindo da Glacier, viemos para Whale Walk, ou viemos ver as baleias. Há várias delas. A gente pode ver seus esguichos ao longe.
Here comes the tail. I should tell it. Yep, there it goes. Oh, neat.
Tá balançando, mas não fui eu não, é o barquinho que tá balançando. As gaivotas em cima para pegar os eventuais peixinhos que sobram. Opa, agora elas vieram bem pertinho, olha. Dá até para ouvi-las. Bem pertinho do barco, uns 2 metros. Doesn't come to us.
Okay, never get so
Oh, look at that.
Wow, that is
Awesome. Oh.
crazy.
A vista é muito bonita, com as geleiras no fundo, mares. E aqui a Mendenhall novamente sob um outro ângulo. Ops, too much. Uma boia lotada de focas ou leões marinhos, e tem uma outra rodando ao lado querendo subir também. Dá uma olhada, ver se consegue enxergar. Então ela tenta e as outras a põem para fora. A cabecinha dela aparecendo.
Yeah. The other ones try to climb up, they'll hiss, remember?
Então, que estão apinhadas aí.
Up on the dock.
Olha ela, olha ela.